at Jawaharlal Nehru University. Professor Swaran, thank you for coming on the show. Now, the United States says India's purchase of discounted Russian oil will not violate American sanctions but put India on the wrong side of history. Your thoughts on this?
Thank you for having me on your show. I think any war has multiple victims of that war. Not just Ukraine in this case, but the entire international community. And with oil prices fluctuating up and down, and India being enormously up to 80% dependent on import of oil, which is enormous burden on Indian economy, which has already slowed down during the pandemic, India has to think how can it deal with its problems of foreign exchange reserves, of its demand for energy. Second, Russia is an old and very close friend of India, and several times they have been very helpful to each other. And if Russia is willing to offer discounts that the Prime Minister of Russia mentioned on Friday to Indian Petroleum Minister, up to 25 to 30%, that's an enormous and very attractive offer. But I want to underline that other than crude oil, India is also focusing on edible oil and fertilizers. Now, these are going to have a direct hit on food inflation in the country. So, India is not violating any of the commitments India has made on international platforms. That is what White House Press Secretary also said. But I understand that India purchasing oil on discounted price from Russia would lead to some kind of displeasure, particularly in the United States. And that's why I started saying any war will have multiple victims, and I think India's sustained proactive neutrality also has made some countries very upset. To some extent, every country is slightly little bit unhappy with India's neutrality, because all countries would like India to stand and support their position or their stand on what they see this war leading the world towards, or what are their reasons to go to war if it is Russia, which is an old friend. So continuing violence in Ukraine definitely will have impact on all countries. I understand Chinese companies are also negotiating with Russian state companies to find other commodities, including oil, on discounted price. So Russia will have to look for other markets, and this has happened wherever sanctions have been imposed. Target countries have looked at alternative sources for supply of their commodities. So China could be the one buying commodities, including oil. India could be another country buying similar commodities and oil from Russia. So that is something to manage our challenges that we in India face right now. Of course, the United States perhaps understands that India is a very close partner of Russia, and that they would appreciate the fact that in given situation, India did not have much options what to go for purchase of that discounted oil. India also purchases enormous amount of defense equipment from Russia. India's purchase of S-400 missiles was another issue which had upset with the United States. So this happens all the time, and I think India would not be deterred simply because a country is displeased. India will have to clearly, weigh cost and benefits of whatever choices it makes. That is how from Friday till date, India is still, senior ministers are still mulling through how to go forward with it. And even when India decides to purchase oil, there are going to be other challenges. Who will be insuring those cargoes? Who will be giving us the oil tankers? There could be other limitations of money transfers, how this rupee-ruble trade will work, because these currencies are also fluctuating. So just because India and Russia agree to purchase Russian oil is not end of the challenges here. So I understand that India will have to overlook some of the displeasure in the United States, but also look at other challenges that will flow in ensuring the sort of smooth flow of oil and fertilizers and edible oil. India is enormously dependent on edible oil also. India imports about 10 to 11% of its edible oil from Russia and Ukraine, of course. So it's going to be a gradual process where India will keep working out cost-benefit analysis.
Now, Professor Swaran, given your expertise, what is your personal assessment of the reasons behind? You talked about neutrality earlier. What is your personal assessment of the reasons behind India's stance on the conflict in Ukraine?
I think India has clearly ensured that it continues to stay on course in terms of its historical focus on non-alignment, which is now becoming proactive neutrality. So India has abstained from all United Nations Security Council resolutions at 3 times and 4th time in General Assembly. But at the same time, it's a proactive neutrality in that sense. So India is supplying humanitarian aid to Ukraine. India is willing to purchase oil from Russia. India is also, actually sanctions is something that India has never been very comfortable with, particularly when individual countries are imposing those sanctions. So India's interest fundamentally lies in ensuring that the violence comes to an end. People on the ground who are dying and suffering every day, they should be the focus of discussions, and we should contribute to the way we can. Indian Foreign Minister only yesterday said in Parliament, India's first focus was to rescue its 22,000 citizens from Ukraine. We have done that now. And the next stage is to focus on diplomacy. So Indian Prime Minister is repeatedly talking to President Putin and President Zelensky to fundamentally make sure that things can come back to certain stability, normality, disengagement, because this is going to have enormous impact on entire world, and India is part of that entire world where India is enormously dependent on energy. So it's fundamentally India's energy demand, I think, if you want to pinpoint as one reason why India is moving forward to purchase that oil, that is, I think, an important fundamental interest. But interest also lies in India's traditional foreign policy of contributing to peace and prosperity through diplomacy.
All right. Thank you for your time, Professor Swaran. Time now for